The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this episode is one of our deep dives, our Bacta tank of talk. Take a deep breath and submerge yourself in healing Force goo. Bacta isn't necessarily of the Force. Everything's of the Force. Anyway, this is the kind of chatter that you're going to hear. Nice and calming, but also questioning. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. I finished my yawn. You said take a deep breath, so I started to, and I yawned like a chihuahua waking up. And I'm here. I'm Ken Napzok, happy to dive deep into the back of this book.
Meditation can quickly become just taking a nap, which I feel is a form of meditation. We're going to be talking a lot about meditation because it's in a book that it took us a great deal of time, a great deal of patience, a great deal of balance and focus to get to. We are finally discussing Padawan by Kiersten White. If you're a regular listener to all our shows, you know that we do these audible suggestions of things you can get for free, which we're going to do in just a moment. And we have been suggesting this book, Padawan by Kiersten White, for what feels like 1,000 years, because the book came out, I don't even remember when, but a while ago. We had every intention to crack it open and read it right away. And just juggling both life and everything else we did want to cover on ForceCenter, it took us forever to get here, but we are really happy to finally be here. And I would assume after all the times we recommended this book that everyone has got the audiobook of Padawan and listened to it 17 times in the time it took us to read the book once. Do you have any thoughts about just our long journey to get here? And then we'll get to the actual Audible queue.
The next Audible book we're trying to get to. I want to apologize to the author, Kiersten White, for taking a long time to get here. It's a fun book. We're going to dive in. And it just, we were here actually 2 weeks ago. We were ready to review it, and then we just couldn't finish it. And as you'll discover, nothing with the book. And the time frame, I'd lost track of the time too. I know around the Kenobi series, but as I always do, before I take a ForceCenter swing at reviewing the books, I look and see what's out there, and I love checking in with Alex Damon and his thoughts. And he's just doing some great work, and he has a wonderful review on Padawan and how it affected him and Molly personally, how they want to use their power for good with their channel, and not just always talk about Star Wars. And it was a good review. And then I like checking in with you, Teeny, and stuff over there. And it was over 4 months ago. 4 months ago. And seems like 2 weeks, but happy to be here and taking this book.
Yeah, we finally made it. It's very exciting. But before we discuss the book, we're going to have to wait one more time as we tell you about Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's right. You can get Padawan by Kiersten White and 179,999 other titles. We are going to continue one last time to recommend the book we're about to speak about, Padawan by Kiersten White. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for a free audiobook. We are also doing a current ask. Ken, can you tell people about our ask?
I'd love to. Hey, we are building out our YouTube channel. We've had it for years. We've been putting podcast episodes up there in a rebroadcast kind of way over the last year, doing the live Q&As, which at the time of this recording and the release of this episode, I think we got one later today. Hey, check it out. But we're doing even more. We got some cool things we're going to announce. And you are hopefully all going to enjoy it. So to help us grow out the channel, we're asking if you could subscribe. We're trying to get to 7,000 subscribers, currently about 6,670 and climbing, and we really appreciate it. It's a big ask, we know, because there's a lot of things to watch and take in. But head over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, ring that bell to get the notification so you don't miss anything, and hear us go. Hey, everybody, we're here on YouTube talking Star Wars.
That is exactly right. And yes, if you're listening early in the day on Friday, we are doing a Q&A at 4 p.m. Pacific time, Friday, December 16th, and we're going to have some YouTube-related announcements. So if you want to be live with us for that, as we have the announcement and have some Q&A time, join us then and there being YouTube, I guess. Anyway, we are going to now dive into Padawan. Ken, can you make an alarm noise?
Auga, auga, auga.
I love alarm noises, except in the morning, but on podcasts and your gentle DJ voice. It's great to hear. That alert is for spoilers. We always discuss the entire book. So if you haven't read it or listened to it yet, be aware that we're going to discuss it in great spoiler detail. So Ken, we talked about it a little bit. This book was released as part of the season of Kenobi. Around the time of the book Brotherhood, the run of that Obi-Wan Kenobi 5-issue limited series comic, and of course the run of, that television show Obi-Wan Kenobi. How do you feel about the year of Kenobi wrapping up? Are you hoping for more Kenobi, or did you feel like this was the Kenobi explosion and now we need to let it go for a little while?
I'm always happy to let something go if I need to, and happy to enjoy what we got. I'm a little sad if there's kind of a general feeling of everyone moving on from Kenobi, because, man, we love Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's an important character in your life, and he is as well for me. And I'm not done learning about Kenobi. I don't need every blank to be filled in his life story. I really don't. But there's some big moments to get to. And also, I think he's just such an iconic character. And they were able to take one of the greatest Jedi of all time in story, but also, again, one of the most iconic characters in pop culture. We all no matter what generation, you kind of grow up with them, and just provide wonderful, important, often intimate lessons for us that all trace back to A New Hope. I've said often, I'll say it again here, Sir Alec Guinness, being the legend that he was, left so much space in his performances as an actor that it just kind of begged for these type of stories. I really think it sinks back to long looks in old Kenobi's face, or stories he was telling Luke. And his work as an actor just allowed for this kind of exploration. So it just begs for more of it in my mind. And I'm excited for Kenobi, season of Kenobi, season 2 of Kenobi.
Yeah, there is always the possibility of a second season of the show. Who knows? We'll speculate that on other episodes. But yeah, I really love what you're saying of starting with Alec Guinness and starting with a New Hope. There was so much that was established about the character of Kenobi, and one of the things was his role in that story of being calm and wise and centered and knowing his purpose and in his role. And it's been so great all over the years to take all of the things that we saw in that character of being curious and witty and a little grumpy and all of these great things, and then kind of figure out what about this character is consistent and what about this character changes like all of us over time, so we can know him, we can truly know him, but then we can go on this long journey with him at different points in his life, at different ages, as he faces different challenges. And I think in some ways that's what's been really rewarding about the season of Kenobi is we're jumping around his timeline from Padawan in this book to his first steps as in this kind of new role as a soldier in Brotherhood in the Clone Wars, and his new role is an equal to Anakin, to coming back from maybe his worst period of darkness in the Kenobi television show. And the whole picture of it is this character who is remarkably consistent in many of his traits, what makes him unique, but also reminding us that life is long. It is full of changes and challenges, and watching this character wrestle with all these points of change along his timeline is really inspiring. And at the end of the day, on almost every Kenobi story, regardless of his age, he comes back to these core characteristics of calm, resolute, always returning to hope, kind of always being the negotiator, always looking for a different solution than just the big, violent, obvious thing, always having this air of wit and charm, and ultimately enjoying other people, enjoying life. The life lesson that he looks great in both blue and beige colors. We've learned so much.
Yes.
Yeah. So a little bit of just Kenobi nerding out as we go into discussing this book, which is other characters certainly there, but kind of interesting. A lot of Star Wars books do jump from perspectives. We never leave the mind of Obi-Wan Kenobi, except for brief bursts of looking into poor, mean Uncle Leo Grib. It's mine. Besides that, we stick with Kenobi. So, what was your overall reaction to the book ultimately? How does this book fit into the pantheon of Star Wars young adult books?
I rank this actually high because it really hits the goal. And this is one I will shout out Nathan Emery over at UTini. I think he does some great reviews over there if you've never checked them out. And he's very relaxed in himself. He comes off as a Jedi. And he said something in his review that resonated with me, Joseph. It's just like this book really makes you want to be the so-called right age for the market of this young adult book, right? Like I kind of wish I was 14, 15, 16. Reading this book, I think it would have really connected. And it connected now because I think those lessons keep going all their life, which, as you just kind of said, is the point of a lot of Kenobi's journey. No matter where you grab onto his story, he's going through something, and that's kind of the point. And this age, this quest for identity, this quest for purpose, fighting things, struggling with things, so real. We're going to dive into that. And I think I really enjoyed that. And this book did a great job taking a familiar character, we all know, and just threw him into the deep end of the water, right? With a planet full of threats and characters we didn't know, we weren't familiar with, that had at times kind of this ethereal, almost sci-fi vibe, more than fantasy, but also had this giant fantasy things going on there, especially with this planet. So I really enjoyed that. And overall, I think this was a smooth read once I got into it, which is weird because even once you and I finally were like, all right, enough. We're going to review Padawan. There was also a break in that. So I read like 190 pages, took a week or so off, and then finished it the last few days. And it was a smooth read. I think Kiersten White really knows how to write for this age group. And it kind of, I always joke that these are the books that I need, 2-cent words versus $2 words, but also there were some $2 words in it. But I just loved it. I do think that the book took some time in the middle and took the time it wanted to take. And there was moments where I wanted to push it forward a bit, like, let's do it. But once you got to the third act, it all makes sense. The third act really moves. A wonderful character shows up that it made me very happy, and it all came together nicely. So therefore, it was well earned. The stakes are very well earned, and the time spent with Kenobi and the planet and the kids he meets, it ended up working really well for me.
Yeah. No, I would agree with a lot of that. I really enjoyed this book. I think that there is some just the setting is obviously extremely meaningful, but I also just like that vibe of. I feel like for my taste, the Star Wars galaxy should be so big, so vast, so weird that no one could ever know all of it. Even Yoda in 900 years, there's still things to be discovered, right? So discovering this strange planet that is aligned with the Force, but also has its own sort of like internal version, micro version of the way the Force functions, of everything being interconnected and balanced and needing that. And
right.
The beauty and the peace and the calm of every creature, every leaf is your friend if you're in harmony, and and that those same things will rip you to shreds if they're faced with fear and anger. I really love this. Hey, Obi-Wan gets back to the temple. He's like, hey, everybody, do you know there's a planet that's just a metaphor? It's great. It's amazing. And I don't mean that as a diss. It's one of the things I think that fantasy can do. You can, if you want an idea to tackle, you can imagine a creature that represents that. You can imagine a planet that represents that. You can imagine a black hole that helps to teach the lesson you want to teach, because it's this wide galaxy that can have anything in it. Which I think is cool for me as a viewer, and also it was so pertinent to Obi-Wan's journey, needing to see something like that.
Actually, I want to highlight that. I really love that, especially when it kind of sink in. It kind of sinks into your soul early on in the book, right? You're like, oh, there's what the planet's doing. And also, like, I think like Kenobi, maybe misread the planet at first, which is kind of what the journey that's going on. And I really love that. It was a great tool, and I love that Star Wars at times very not subtle, and that there was this thing called the power and how you dealt with it and everything about it. I think you're right. That's part of the fantasy side of sci-fi, of Star Wars, that we celebrate. We also celebrate the sci-fi side. So I really love the use of one planet to teach them all.
Yeah, and give me as many weird planets that are maybe not explored, maybe not known. I love that it was new too. That it wasn't like this is the testing planet that the Jedi have known about, like that it was new was part of the joy for me. I do think this was like a very much a young adult book. I feel like almost all of the Star Wars young adult books are people at a sort of coming of age moment somewhere in their teens or early 20s. I think some of them are a little bit more complex with that perspective. You get into the High Republic, and some of those books do have a younger character like Reith Silas at the core of it, but then we're also really following the journey of some of the mentors as well, or a little bit more caught up in galactic events, or like Rebel Rising is like, it's a young adult book, but it's coming of age and a hard time learning hard lessons, And this one in some ways felt like a really straightforward young adult book, because it really is like Obi-Wan has wanted to go to high school forever. But now that he's in high school, he really misses junior high. And again, I'm not criticizing the book at all. I think it is powerful in that way, but it is also very straightforward. The kind of the idea of a young adult book in the marketing space, I
love it. Yeah, no, great point. Yeah, little bit of graduating high school vibes at the end too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's Obi-Wan encountering other young people who are taking their first steps into responsibility. There are adult characters, but we really don't spend a lot of time with their perspective in emotions, except for the villain out of sort of necessity. I think the thing that I ultimately enjoyed the most about it, which I wanted to be sure to say at the top, is it's definitely a young adult book. There are definitely lots of moments of Obi-Wan questioning himself. And I will say that for myself as a reader, there were a couple times like, I know that's what's at stake for Obi-Wan. I'd be okay moving a little bit faster with the plot. I think that is probably an age thing, a taste thing. That's not a huge criticism. But that said, I feel like if I had a friend of any age who was like, I don't know, you seem to see a lot more in Star Wars in the Jedi than I do. I thought they were just kind of like weird, violent, uptight monks who kidnap children. What are all these beliefs you're talking about? Where do you get that? This book is a really great summary of ideas that are many places in Star Wars, but this is such a compact, moving summary of core Jedi beliefs, and not just stating them, but walking through with Obi-Wan and discovering the why of the beliefs. Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi, to quote Luke Skywalker. That's so much about this book is about fear. It's about balance in many ways, the balance between what you need and what the larger community needs. It has a great sort of take on, it's not chiding Obi-Wan for being selfish. Obi-Wan learns that all the things that he needs and wants are important, and he needs to wrestle with them, but he can't be so devoted to himself and his own needs that he doesn't see what the larger community needs. It's about not coveting power for power's sake. It's about being in the moment, not consumed by the past or the future. It's all of these Jedi tenets, like I said, I think are sprinkled all over Star Wars. But if somebody just was like, I want to see the bigger picture of Star Wars that you see, I'd be like, read this book, and you'll see some of these things laid out, and then you'll see them everywhere in Star Wars.
That's high praise for this book, and I concur with your thoughts on that there. Justice for the Jedi is a T-shirt you should be wearing every day there. And I feel like, what's his name? Low Grip. That's how I said it. How did you say it? Lou Grip? Bad guy.
Yeah. Uncle mean bad guy. Uncle. I was about to swear. Uncle Low Grib.
Low grip. There you go. Yeah. He's got a low grip is how I thought about it. But he at times, I don't necessarily think Kiersten White meant this, specifically, but like he kind of reads like Twitter comments about Jedi, about Jedi are the bad guys, and everything, which is just such a surface level reading of it. I very much understand where it comes from, because I've joked about that even back in 2002. I had some of those thoughts. But I get it. But I love exploring it. And you're absolutely right. This is almost a brochure for, so you want to be a Jedi, or a brochure for, so you think the Jedi are bad.
Yeah.
And I love the exploration of that.
Yeah. And the idea of Logrib is this, he's going on this dark side journey. He's tasted power, and he is willing to kill anyone to get it. He's become utterly selfish in his pursuit of power. And I think that's an important element of the discussion of, justice for the Jedi and the Sith perspective is, to me, the Sith or the dark side perspective. And it's shared by Sheev and Logrib here. Is I perceive anybody who's tasted this power could only ever want it for themselves. So anybody who claims that they're using it in a balanced way, that they want to help other people, that they're selfless, they must be lying. Because I can't imagine that someone could handle power better than I can.
Yeah, and that, and there's probably examples you could point to as someone who is lying, and so therefore that becomes this blanket thought over all of it. And I think this book does a great job of asking you to kind of measure the intent, right, and measure the core goals. And I think that's something that's very real. One of my hot button issues right now is the whole wow, they're all bad kind of take on, say, politics or leaders or anything. And I very much understand where that comes from. Very much get it. But you got to measure the intent and measure we always say, trace it out, follow the empathy, follow the compassion. And I think that's one of the big thoughts behind the Jedi and Obi-Wan wrestling with it. Because there's a lot of things that good old Uncle Batty's saying here, low grib, that again, you're like, yeah, and there's probably some examples of that. But that's not necessarily the case, and that's not necessarily the purpose. Anyways, it starts to get to one-to-one life stuff, but I think it's also the great value of the book, and that's what a young adult coming-of-age book should do in Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think that is, for me, the ultimate justice for the Jedi idea is the Jedi are striving to use power in this good and noble way and find this balance. And yes, they stumble. Sometimes the stumbles are real bad, and they need to be held accountable, right?
Real bad.
But this is a one-to-one life thing, not with any specific politician necessarily, but with like politics in general, of this need to kind of hold people to perfection. And if they stumble once, then they're just as bad as everybody else. And the idea that, Obi-Wan, out of caring so hard, froze up in fear and made some mistakes. He's just as bad as Darth Maul. Like, no, because he's working to correct. He's listening and trying to be better. And that's a grace that I think that we should give in the real world to our leaders. If we believe, like you're saying, their intent is good, and they're going to slip. Yeah, they're going to do some things. Yeah, we don't agree with, and then we have to weigh: is it big enough for me to, take all my marbles and say I'm not going to participate in the system?
Absolutely, yeah. But I thought, all that's at stake, and it's a valuable lesson for Kenobi, and hopefully all of us. Hey, there we go.
Exactly. But wait, there's more to learn.
There's more.
That's just our overall thoughts. We're going to dive into a couple of the big ideas in the book. I think there's lots of different ways to look at it, lots of different ways to frame it in the classic Jedi way. But I wanted to discuss a couple of big ones. And the one that really resonated with me that I want to start with, Ken, is this idea of learning through experience. Obi-Wan is very frustrated in the temple. He is having a hard time connecting with the Force, understanding it, can't meditate. He's just kind of stuck. He knows everything, but it's not working for him. Then he has a breakthrough by literally, physically going out into the galaxy and making the theoretical practical reality. I think in a lot of places in the books, it's pretty straightforward that Obi-Wan and the Narans are going through similar things. The Narans are, left by their parents and forced to fend for themselves. They have been given all these rules and they are following them. So there's this great kind of idea that Obi-Wan at first thinks that, hey, they are people who are living on their own, but really they're stuck in the same way he is at the temple of they just have the rules and they're not really moving beyond them. There are also some great quotes early on. I think is a very elegant way to set up this idea. Great quotes early on where Obi-Wan is aware that Yoda's a really good teacher because he sets you on the path to finding the answer, but then he lets you find the answer yourself. And these ideas were really resonating with me. And then, I think it's well done for this book. I love that at the end of Qui-Gon is, did you miss it? Yep, here's the lesson. Qui-Gon's speech at the end of that great cheeky, like, you think I did, let you sneak away so that you could have a personal experience rather than just a learned experience in the temple? It makes some of these ideas very, very clear. So, Ken, did you like this theme? What for you was moving or affecting about it?
I love this theme. You can go to the base level idea of, we often learn by what we see and what we feel. I think that ties into the bigger lessons of understanding, empathy and compassion, which is something that's, probably changed dramatically in my life too. But so I love that. I love going out. I'm one of those, let's just dive in and, give me some things and I'll figure it out and probably fail and run away. So I have to go back and try again. But also there's valuable lessons to me of with Obi-Wan out, there's a patience lesson. The course he wants to learn all the cool lightsaber fights, and I love all that kind of stuff. Going to your idea of the big Jedi picture, but look, it's one of those things at the end of the book where, with Qui-Gon's great speech of "Here, let me just summarize what you learned," but Obi-Wan kind of looking back and going, "Yeah, this is why, and that's why this was done, and why this was here." And you're never going to know that until you experience it. You're never going to know until you get out of the classroom. You're never going to know until you know all the things you need to know, and you look back and find out where you are. So anyways, it resonated with me. I loved it. I love kind of experiencing that through Obi-Wan's eyes. Because again, even I land on that planet and I'm just like, oh, I get it. No, I didn't get it. The planet had a curveball for me. And I thought that was valuable.
Yeah, I really love this idea. I think the idea of, balance is talked about a lot in Star Wars, and I think this book does a really good job of kind of almost everything it's exploring. It does have a balance in it. And I felt like this was a book that absolutely celebrated the need for, younger people going out into the world, but I think it's true for people of all ages to experience things for yourself to truly have a grasp on them. But I also didn't feel like it was like, studying's boring.
Right.
I didn't feel like the lesson of this book was, hey kids, quit school and go find out. It was this balance that study and training and mentorship and lessons from older people, those are all valuable. But you can't just have them. You also need to have practical knowledge. You also have to find out how you make choices when you're confronted with not a theoretical question, but a real question that has real and immediate impacts on other people. I thought it was such a thing about balance, like that Obi-Wan comes back at the end and now he's ready for more training and studying and sort of book knowledge, because he has now a reference for this is how it works in the real world. And now it is more meaningful to me. It's not arbitrary.
Yeah, no, I like some of the stuff early on, the whole meditation lessons and Obi-Wan wanting more action, coming around to it, and having that realization of it's time to meditate. I loved all that, and a lot of the stuff going on here with the Lenarans and their parents, and talking about the learning for yourself and how especially we're gonna say a lot. Hey, it's a young adult book, but it's stuff I think I'm even struggling with in my late 40s of what came before and what you can change, how you can change, and what the parents put out there for you because of what they felt at the time. And maybe it was wrong. Maybe it was the intent was good, but the effect was wrong. And how you just kind of address that. And you can only really start to address that when you experience it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I always think of this experience I've had, and I'm sure I have talked about it on a ForceCenter before, so I apologize if it was very recent. But I had a friend who was kind of a mentor as I was starting to do improv, and he had an improv book in his house when I came over to do some rehearsals. I was like, cool, can I read that improv book? And can I borrow that? And he's like, yeah, you can, but it's like reading about skiing. Like it's kind of ultimately useless because improv is really something that you can know every rule, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's a really good life lesson. Some things have to be experiential. And then years later, I told another friend who I really admire and gave me a lot of great life lessons, but is very much an academic. And I told him this story thinking he'd be like, cool, great wisdom. And he was like, that's awful. He's like, that's the most anti-academic, anti-learning thing I've ever heard. And I've always been really moved by hearing those two visceral reactions.
Right.
That what I loved about this book is it wasn't either of those extremes of like, you have to do, or you have to study, you have to train. It was really about both and about bringing those extremes together. I love that in particular, Obi-Wan used the forms at one point,
Yep.
You saw the value of his training, but you also saw how deeply he needed to experience practical reality in order to bring more to his training.
Indeed. And as you grow up and start to face more real things, it will challenge what you think, challenge what you thought you believe or how you would react. And that's a great thing to see in action.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you have ideas about how this theme, this idea of, balancing training versus practical experience, how that connected to the larger story of the Jedi or to Obi-Wan's larger journey?
I think in terms of the story of the Jedi, just going to the core of what the Jedi are, the well-rounded picture, going from Kenobi early on, again, saying, hey, I want to pull out the lightsaber and do the cool things, and looking at his other friends, and you got what's a series, the one, which is a Legends pool, right? That character, just like out and about having crazy adventures and, excitement, adventures. Jedi crave these things, right? To go from that and to learn how to wield this power, and that you do have a power, acknowledging that you have this power. Kenobi comes to that realization, I have these skills, and that can affect people. Low Grib's got that, like, oh yeah, he's trying to keep the power from you because he's got it too, that kind of thing. And just, I don't know, being out and about in the galaxy and learning how to wield it. I think this goes all the way to the Kenobi series. One of the things, that we feel, and something that's, I think, big on your heart, Joseph, is the journey of Kenobi in the Kenobi series, really connecting with the path, right? The way and the why of being a Jedi. And so that's really, the groundwork is really laid for Obi-Wan in this series, so that when it's challenged later on in his life several times, he can hopefully fall back on what he's truthfully learned, what he honestly has learned. Mm-hmm. And I think we all might have those moments. It's where you can go back, go back on both your training. I think training and just knowing what to do in certain situations. It matters. I've said before, in earthquake training, earthquake response drills, I got 240 pages to tell you what to do, but you're not going to know until that ground starts shaking. Mm-hmm. But you fall back on that. So I think this book is a lot of the lessons that Kenobi falls back on up until perhaps even the end of his life, or this chapter of his life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I really agree with you. I think this was really valuable because in a lot of Kenobi storytelling on screen, the Kenobi television show is different. Kenobi has already learned these lessons off screen, and he's pretty steadfast, and he has successes or failures trying to pass them on or trying to remember them. But a lot of times he's the steadfast character. Yeah. And these kinds of stories where we get into his perspective are great. And I think you can definitely point to moments in the Clone Wars animated series and in the prequels where Obi-Wan is very confident of the Jedi rules, of the Jedi path, maybe sometimes to a fault. Obi-Wan expresses out loud himself, Obi-Wan's opinion, that he failed Anakin. Maybe because he was just so certain, just stay on the path and it'll be great. The attachment thing, I understand, it's a bummer, but there's a reason for it. Yeah. Just follow the code, you'll be great. He has that attitude with Qui-Gon even. So you could have a reading of Obi-Wan where, like, who's this guy who just got, given the Jedi brochure and was like, cool, okay, I'll do what I'm told, right? This book is such a great adventure of showing him personally experiencing and believing in the why of the rules, right? In some ways, his first time doing it, right? Yeah. So I think, like you're saying, it's fun to connect this book to other moments of this isn't indoctrination in all those Jedi beliefs about how to confront fear, the importance of balance, the importance of helping other people, the importance of not abusing that power you have, but using it in the right way, of trying to balance what you need and want with what is best for the community. All these great ideas that the Jedi Code are trying to address and trying to keep people on the path of being most helpful and least hurtful. We get to see him go, I get why that's rules there. I memorized them all in the temple, and the explanation made sense, but now I experience them, and I believe them because I choose to, right? Yeah. Taking that idea into every choice he makes in other Kenobi storytelling is really great.
And getting there yourself, and sometimes it takes traumatic situations. Otherwise, sometimes it's a long road, but you get there. And Kenobi, it's very realistic that Kenobi will occasionally slip off and move away from that shore, but swim back to it.
Yeah, exactly. So does this theme of needing personal experience to be balanced out with your training, that resonates with you, right? That connects with your earthquake experiences, but I'm sure other life experiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just in terms of personal growth, being out and about and having a set of beliefs instilled into me as a youngster. And I think a lot of them have great intent behind it, but see how those can get convoluted, how those can be misread by even those that taught me or, myself growing up. And then it's not until, for me, it's not a journey for everybody. For me, I hit a bigger city and meet more people and get into more situations and decide for myself, all right, what do I want to take from what I was taught and how do I want to apply it to this situation? How do I want to change with it? How do I want to challenge? But there's also moments that I find myself, affirming what I believe, the core of it all. But anyways, Kenobi at 16, hitting the ground running. I wish I had that chance a little younger. I was a little older when I hit the town, hit the big city, and was like, who's that person? I've never met that kind of person. I've never been challenged in that way. And I've got this, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. And people asking, great, but why? And you come to the answers eventually.
Yeah.
No, we did.
No.
And I do too.
Yeah, no, I like thinking about it from that perspective of what age should you, any you, the larger you, go on this kind of adventure? When did you first metaphorically visit Lenara? And I think Obi-Wan is blessed to have a mentor like Qui-Gon who knows that's what he needs. There's plenty of discussion of would it have been better for Qui-Gon to say, "Hey, I think you should go on this journey," rather than just leaving him hanging.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
That's perhaps a larger discussion about Jedi parenting that I don't need to get into. But yeah, this was really a great book to really wrestle with those ideas of getting out of your comfort zone and needing to experience things. I've been talking a lot about the short films I'm making. I'm having a ton of fun doing them, and they're this interesting balance because a lot of it is creative stuff that I am very familiar with because I've been doing it a long, long time. And then there's other parts of it that I've been scared of because I don't want to figure out how insurance works. That's terrifying. And the experience of just facing a dumb fear like that. And, I normally have other people help me with that kind of stuff. And what, I'm going to figure it out because I'm tired of being afraid of it. And, it was great to then after 2 weeks of stress, getting an email from somebody going in order to rent this equipment, I need to generate a COI. What is that? I'm no, I know how to generate a COI. I'm it's not as cool as being able to deflect a laser bolt with a lightsaber when you didn't think you could. But this is what I love about Star Wars is we can see it in these more mundane things in life. The lessons apply to us if it's insurance or laser swords.
Yeah, all the same.
It's all the same. It's all the same, really. The other big idea that I really wanted to talk about, Ken, is this sort of idea of the cycles of conflict. Obi-Wan is trapped in a cycle at the temple. He desperately wants to succeed, but his fear of being unable to succeed is causing him to fail and not succeed. And he's even kind of aware of it. And he's like, I don't know how to get out of it. The Lenarans are also trapped in this cycle. They are raiding the planet to survive the planet, which is making the planet attack them in the first place. What did you feel about this theme? Was that moving or affecting to watch Obi-Wan and then the Lenarans, kind of our two sets of main characters, absolutely trapped in a cycle?
Oh, yeah. I was like, this is why I'm struggling with some stand-up bits right now. Oh, yeah. And again, ties in a lot of what we were talking about before about how you're taught and changing a lot of those things in these big cycles. Yeah, they connected some big issues with me, both in Star Wars, and I guess always you can pull them out, but how to use power, the big balance issues, the idea of taking and not giving back. But the bigger things, all of those lessons pour out of just Obi-Wan himself, just this connecting with this idea of self-confidence being an issue. I know a lot of people out there reading this book, even our Discord, have connected with the anxiety and doubt side of this. And, this is someone who goes on to be one of the greatest Jedi of all time. You and I often refer to him as kind of a poster child for, good old goody two-shoes Jedi here. But to actually lift the hood and see the workings and see how he got here. And it's just very realistic. And even, we talk about, learning more about yourself, your identities and all those kind of things, but just him around the other Jedi and being, jealous or, wanting what another Jedi has or thinking what they have and seeing what the planet is and for Obi-Wan to learn as he goes, as we were discussing earlier. I just think it all for me came back to self-confidence. Do you believe you can do this or not? And how do you get to that point? And when is it too far? When is that? There's a balance in that too.
Yeah. No, I really love that, how much this book set up this question of like, well, how do you get out of a cycle in general, but specifically for Obi-Wan, it was such a great practical depiction of fear, because when fear gets talked about in Star Wars or other storytelling, it can be like, real physical fear of like, it's real scary to raid an Imperial base where, you might be murdered, it's you can sometimes see it as physical fear. And I think the fear that Star Wars is often talking about, and what Luke Skywalker means when he says confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi, is these little fears of what if I fail? What if people don't love me? What if this makes me feel small? That there's such small little fears that fester into this huge, awful thing, right?
Yeah.
It's so recognizable that I think it makes the book really powerful to say, how is Obi-Wan going to get it out of that? And I think even more powerful, this book to me was a great example of telling a story with a legacy character where we jump around the character's timeline almost makes it more powerful. Like this would be a great book if we'd never heard of Obi-Wan Kenobi. This would have been a great book, and Obi-Wan comes across as charming, witty, the negotiator, powerful, all these great things. But there's a power to reading this book and seeing Obi-Wan utterly trapped and going, I can't do all these things. And we, the audience, knowing he can and being like, but you totally can, Obi-Wan.
Right.
Here are dozens of examples in canon where you do exactly that, So I think in a way it makes it, more powerful of us waiting for him to find out, his way out, because we know he does, we know he can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to pull up the Wikipedia page, but isn't it how in the real world, I hear this a lot. I've always suffered from self-loathing and apathy and fear of just trying. And a lot of people say, I wish you could see yourself the way I see you, right? Which is a great statement. It's a loving statement that comes your way. Take it. But I think we're the audience doing that to Kenobi. I wish you could see yourself the way we see you, Obi-Wan. Because we know what you can get to. And then it highlights the problems with self-confidence and fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that Obi-Wan's, solution is looking straight at him, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Then there is, I think Obi-Wan's cycle is a lot about fear, right? But then the Lenarans, I think you could definitely make an argument that it's fear. But to me, it's a little bit more about anger in fighting, right? Mm-hmm. They have known this way for so long, where life is a struggle. And I love that to me, it's a little bit not, the Lenarans are obviously, their story ends up good. I'm not saying they're little Sith Lords in training, but I do feel like their cycle is kind of a metaphor about the dark side, because they are aware this way of life is really hard. It's really awful. We're going to die really young, and then we're going to pass it on to the young ones, and then they're going to die really young. And even when they're told, hey, it sucks, you don't have to do it, here are ways out, it's still really hard for them to step out of a cycle that they know sucks, which I think is such a great and honest depiction of humanity. We have a hard time of stepping out of our systems, even when we know our systems are awful. How did you feel about that?
This was a big one for me. Now, this is where it was like the planet itself was reminding me of lessons, or seeing it. I was right away clued in of like, oh, this planet is teaching Obi-Wan things, and these Lenarans are these survivors also, which by the way, it's all true. But I love your point of like, no, they're aware. Yeah, life ain't good here. But it's our life, which, by the way, can be a very positive statement too. But to see them to go into it, and this idea, it connects a lot with the Jedi idea, practical look at balance and change and the purpose of the Jedi and power. I love that they in a way do read like little Sith Lords in training. They're not, but there's those moments where they're like, we take these orbs, and it's good. Just to kind of unpack all that, it connected with me in this way. We're talking about cycles and stuff. I don't want to jump too far ahead of what we're talking about here.
Feel free to jump around.
Yeah. No, it's really weird. We're about 4 months late on this book, right? I also at the same time am 4 months late on this docuseries on Apple TV called 1971, the year that music changed everything. I've mentioned it here on the show before. This will be remembered as Ken's 1971 doc period of life. And it's a music doc, and it starts with that, but it goes into so much more. And it's fascinating to watch this series, this 8-part episode, 8-episode series, talk a lot about the change, the upheaval that was happening in 1971. And you hear words and phrases and see images that are being repeated today. And the same words and the same fights in a lot of way. And I was shook by that in a way of like, well, that generation. And that's the boomer generation that, it's so easy to insult now. But I was like, why is that? And it truly, to me, is a cycle of fear, of power, and refusal to change. And why? And I don't think there's an answer for that. And every generation kind of gets in that power seat and doesn't want to give up what they know. And it's why that stuff with Bail and Leia resonates for me in the Kenobi series of changing things together. And so to see it in display here, where a lot of this comes from the parents, once it's unpacked that, well, the parents they knew this was going to happen to you, that you were going to get all this wonderful power to survive only to die early. And it would, I guess, repeat. I mean, eventually it would die out here, you'd think, with these survivors. I don't know. It all connected with me. This real world look at this powerful year in our human history that is we're still fighting the same issues. And why? It is the cycle. You can't get out of the cycle. And what is the cycle? It's a lust for power. It's once you have it, that power might keep you alive. So why would you give that up? And it's just refusal to change a lot of times because it's not affecting you anymore. And you're pulled back for it. And it's all here on this planet in front of Obi-Wan. And to watch these kids, why would you want to give up the thing that's keeping us alive? And why? And having to learn that and feel that. And you do feel that scene of Obi-Wan kind of, almost like he's Noah on the ark. He's calling all the animals, the planet. He's at peace. He's meditated, and the character Aj coming around and going, "Whoa!" Like, "Whoa!" The gobblers they like you. That was just a powerful thing of like, this is what happens when you break the cycles. This is what could potentially happen. It's not. I'm not saying that means it's all peace and flowers. I'm just saying there's another side to this. Like you're saying, how can you get out of it? And even when you know. And that was powerful. The Lenarans knew, just like I think previous generations know the importance of changing. The people in 1971 know the importance of why we got to change. Then why are they the ones fighting that change 20, 30 years later?
Yeah.
These cycles.
Yeah. I think for me, I took it as, yet another reminder of this idea that there's a kind of comfort in anger, right? Because you know your purpose. It's, punch, 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 and justify. And I'm not saying that people should never be angry. We've talked about this recently. Yeah. There are obviously lots of things to be angry about. I've been rewatching Rebels and this idea that is many places in Star Wars, but is very clearly set up by Ezra's conversation with Yoda, and it's reflected in the Saw arc in season 4, which I'm watching right now. Of there's a mantra even between Kanan and Ezra of like, yeah, we know we have to fight. The question isn't should we fight. We're in an impossible situation. The Empire must be fought, of course. The question is, how do we fight? Yeah, and I think that to me is so much the heart of so many ideas. I think it's what's going on with Luthen and Mothma and Andor and Marva is, how do we choose to face this? And while facing a conflict, if anger and lashing out is the only answer, it's going to block us from seeing other things. And we get used to it that's the only way to be. Yeah. It's not that we shouldn't ever get angry. It's not that we don't have to fight. It's about what do we do to ourselves when that is the only recourse, that is the only framing of events. Because it's not like, they could have lived in peace with the planet, but I also love that, Aj makes a practical choice and being like, I know. Us and the planet are going to be done if I do this. So it's not like the planet isn't scary and shouldn't be taken seriously, and is maybe something to be dealt with. It's about being aware of what choices they're making and how they choose to wrestle with this reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Yeah. And I love that, again, we talk about just there's no, you don't even need Qui-Gon, though I appreciated Qui-Gon's speech at the end, but it's pretty clear what the planet's teaching all of us here.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan needed Qui-Gon at the end. And it was,
yes, he did.
And it was pretty great that it laid everything out, but framed it as a question with plausible deniability to the council. How does this idea of being trapped in cycles, how does that for you connect to either the Jedi themselves or to Obi-Wan's larger journey?
Well, if you look at the Jedi, I think it's perhaps the danger, right, of where we see the Jedi Order heading. It's even heading perhaps right now. Love Qui-Gon kind of going, I've always been intrigued by Wayseekers and stuff with Dooku and all stuff. And I think as we keep analyzing the Jedi Order late in the game, there could be some cycles that set in. Perhaps even we're seeing them set in the High Republic era and leads directly to the Jedi. It lends credence to some of the things maybe some of the critics would say about the Jedi, and why it makes it so easy for Palpatine to just sell that lie. Oh, you think there's a difference between the Jedi and the Sith? Come on. And you can point at some things for the Jedi and go, yeah. But it comes down to me, they're not aware of their own cycles or aware what's going on and aware what's trapping them. And why would you? You got a beautiful temple, some robes, and some power. And that's, again, that's not me criticizing the Jedi. That's just, it's easy to get trapped in that. So to see Kenobi kind of learning that lessons, to see what Qui-Gon thinks about that kind of stuff, and to know where we're going. It's a powerful, perhaps the Jedi could learn the lessons that Kenobi's learning on that planet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is the story of the Jedi's fall is giving into fear. There's more happening in the galaxy they control. Ancient enemies are coming back. They don't have the understanding that they want. Their ability to use the Force is diminishing. Making choices with the Senate is turning into just following the Senate's orders. And they give in to fear and cling rigidly to their rules, and then we see characters who are willing to kind of go, our rules are great, but we need to explore why, and we need to question them. Characters like Qui-Gon and Anakin and Ahsoka, make some breakthroughs that the rest of the Jedi can't. Anakin makes a bad breakthrough. So I do feel like it is very relevant to the overall story of the Jedi, but I love it from Kenobi's perspective, and I love how he handles his fear, right? When he finally does meditate and connect with the planet and is rewarded with a lovely Dr. Dolittle moment, where all the animals like him. He has a Disney moment in the forest. They're going to start helping him do his dishes. It's such a beautiful moment. But I love that he's not like, the magic ticket, or like, I learned to kick my fears over. I put them in a steel box and then I go out. I love that he's just like, the way to handle these fears is go, they're absolutely there. They're absolutely real. I do need to deal with them, but I can't let them control me. I can't let them hold me back from moving forward. I think that's so important I think it's great advice. You can't just defeat fear and anger. They're always there. But you don't want to let them control your journey. And I think it really reflects who Obi-Wan is. He learns early on, like, I am always going to be wrestling with these issues. I just can't let them control me. I get it. I really understand that. And you think of, like, in the Clone Wars, his response to, spoiler alert, if you have never watched the Clone Wars, his response to Maul murdering Satine, specifically to break him, of him being like, I've been through this my entire life. Yes, I'm full of rage. I'm full of heartbreak. And of course I want nothing more than to cut your head off. But I'm not going to do it because it's not going to benefit me in the long run. And I've known this, and I know this, and I work on it, and I work on it.
I work on it. There you go. That's the bumper sticker we all need.
Yeah, and when it all fails him, in the events of Revenge of the Sith and going into the Kenobi show is so much about him being like, okay, deal with the pain, deal with the trauma.
Right.
Don't let it hold me back. Find a way to move forward.
Yep, find a way to work with it. And work on it.
Yep. And I think there's lots of fun and interesting things to be thought about of like he masters this skill so well and he doesn't do the best job passing it on to Anakin because Anakin is going through so much. There's so much pain and anger, and I think Kenobi's like, hey, do it. It doesn't quite help Anakin, figure out how to truly live with his fear and anger rather than let them control him.
I agree. And Kenobi as a teacher, begs some closer inspection. And maybe that also means we look at Qui-Gon too.
Yeah, absolutely. Clearly the lesson of Qui-Gon is trick your kids into running away. Again, love it as a fantasy. Anyway, I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for breaking cycles, Ken?
Just at first you got to identify them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the toughest thing. And I have a lot in my life and lot that are inherited, the wiring, as I say, and a lot of them that are nurtured and you have to identify them and make that choice. And it's something I fail at almost every day. So identify.
Yep. It is. There isn't a super easy answer for me. It helps to try to seek out the new and just get a fresh perspective, a fresh air, a sense of movement, a reminder that you have choice because it's so easy to feel trapped. And I am not coming with any great wisdom of having conquered being trapped in this cycle. I'll probably be trapped in 3 cycles today and need to do, some work. Try to move forward, and I'll probably fail at 2 of them, and hopefully I'll do good on one of them.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Any other big ideas in the book that you wanted to discuss? There is certainly a lot more there.
Yeah, a lot more there we can dive into, but overall, just I think the big that use of that word power and what that means in Star Wars, and it's such a fantasy word, right? It's think of He-Man in the 80s. I have the power. We've grown up with that, and I think a lot of people love that term. And who wouldn't love a little power? But we all have it. And this book is talking about what is your power? Again, that's why I like that there's that moment of, Obi-Wan's got things you all don't, or these orbs give you, and he has it on his own. And that's a power. We all have some sort of power. We also have some sort of influence. And this how you use it. It's a big question in Star Wars and in life. And this book really deals with it in a visceral way. I enjoyed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the other idea that I did enjoy, and I think it's connected to everything else, is the idea of mentorship of parents. I like how Obi-Wan really feared he was being failed by Qui-Gon, that Qui-Gon disliked him, that maybe even Qui-Gon abandoned him, and then he almost has a couple of great moments of like, actually, I really don't have it that bad at the temple, when he sees that kind of almost everything that he feared might be happening to him was for sure happening to the Lenarans.
Yes.
That they were actually abandoned by their parents as a result of their parents, being trapped in this cycle, that their uncle comes back and does actually hate them the way Obi-Wan fears Qui-Gon does. I thought that was yet another moment of connection, yet another moment of Obi-Wan kind of getting out of his cycle because he is seeing it from the outside and realizing that, some of his fears aren't true. They're just fears. Yeah,
perspective. And I think it's important. Perspective is important to fight a lot of things. It doesn't mean you don't need, you should seek out help. I should seek out, meds if you need, all those kind of big real world things. But sometimes just perspective is a great way to start your journey forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a fresh perspective by taking a quick break, and then we'll be back to discuss some of the fun moments and the canon moments in Padawan. We'll be right back. And we are back to continue our discussion of Padawan by Kiersten White. So we're going to talk about canon. We're going to talk about some specific moments. But I did want to talk about, one of the few little bits and pieces I saw discussed on social media, that Obi-Wan in this book does have some thoughts on romance and sexuality. They all happen around page 173 and 174. That's where he's thinking about them a lot, but they pop up again. There's definitely some, I would say, in my opinion, some kind of flirtation with the different Lenarans and some it being put to Obi-Wan that he was or was not attractive, and him discovering like, oh, I didn't realize I was invested in whether or not I was attractive. Turns out I am. I definitely want Obi-Wan to realize that some people feel him attractive because he spends a lot of time seeming very aware of his attractiveness in the Clone Wars as he flirts through the galaxy. What were your thoughts on Obi-Wan's reactions in pondering about romance and sexuality and attachment?
Yeah, it was great to get into it because this is one of the things that kind of made headlines. The fact that essentially, to be direct, Kenobi flirts with a male character in this, as well as many other characters. We'll be clear to point out, but that one kind of became a headline, right? And so to actually spend time with it and to see the power of this moment, the importance of this moment, I really enjoyed it. I thought it fit nicely into a lot of the themes. Including what are you trying to get out of romance? That could be kind of a power. Is it for you? Is it for you at all? Is it for them? Are you in this for some mutual agreement? I think there's a big problem, particularly with masculinity and male culture growing up about it's more about what you take as opposed to what you give in the actual relationships, and that's a certain kind of power. And so what you really need is coming up, and it's just a moment of discovering your own identity and place on that spectrum, right? And I think, again, talking about if you were of the age for this book, this is probably a pretty important and powerful moment for someone who might be younger, but also someone who could be older. So it was to actually spend time with it, to go beyond the headlines. And there's a lot of great points about it that were made, and this and that, and some that were just horrendous points made about it, to be clear. I love it. But again, it was all part of the themes. And a book that's about identity, a coming of age, of learning, not that you are stereotypically attractive, but we would say Kenobi might fall into that category. Ewan McGregor, Alec Guinness himself, but that someone would see value in you, right? We all experience that at some point, and that's a hard thing to accept. And what do you do with that? And that almost maybe it's a power that Kenobi takes. Maybe that's why he feels now he can go flirt his way through the galaxy, as he said. So anyways, I love spending time with it. After being 4 months late in the book, actually was good for me when it came to this section, because I was kind of ready for it, right? Like, yeah, we're going to get to this. I know. I remember there's some headlines. Let me figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, I really didn't dive in beyond seeing headlines and discussions and some, labels of, Obi-Wan represents this sexuality. Mm-hmm. And, I am not an expert, and I, like I said, I didn't deep dive into any of those. So I am not reflecting any thoughts other than my own experience and my own interpretation. I'm always wanting to listen to lots of different voices to get lots of different takes. But for me, having seen those headlines, I was surprised that it was just this kind of light moment of exploration and what if. I think that we've had a lot of stories, which I love, of characters who kind of grow up wrestling with this idea of attachment of like, well, is it emotional? Okay, get that. Or is it just physical? What line do I cross? What line don't I cross? Anakin, great stuff with Elzar, and their young relationships were like, yeah, a lot of Padawans just straight up get physical. And then we're like, that's all it was. We're good. We understand the attachment. We're like, we've had a lot of it. We've had a lot of, stories from the perspective of young Jedi who are understandably horny. I'll just say the H word. And I really like getting this perspective from Kenobi because it fit into the book where Kenobi knows the rules and believes in the rules because he wants to be a good Jedi. And this is the time for him to go, wait a minute, do I believe in the rule? Am I doing that because I was told to, or what do I feel? What do I want? I'm going to start asking that. Yeah. And to me, that's what was really, really great about it. This quote that starts on 173 and goes through 174. Would he ever get to a point where kissing someone felt like anything less than a betrayal of himself and the Jedi? And if he did get to that point, who would he want to kiss? The Lenarans were confident and charismatic, which was attractive, but he couldn't imagine just kissing any of them. Maybe he didn't want to be with any of them, but rather to be more like each of them. or maybe he wanted to kiss all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was such a great exploration of, okay, for Obi-Wan, he's not just desperate for the physical contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's thinking through the rule and then going like, okay, but if I did want physical contact, why would I want it? And who would I want it with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd put that on the shelf to be explored later. And in some ways, it feels like set up for what happens with Satine.
Yeah.
That because there's even that sort of joke about, well, whoever I ever kissed probably wouldn't be a royalty or a politician,
Right.
Feels like a direct Satine joke in that is, as far as we know, the big love of his life. We don't know canonically if that got physical, how physical it got. But I really liked it because it just felt like an honest, open exploration of what is intimacy, what is physical intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want it? I'm totally open to just discovering who that would be with. Maybe it would be with no one. Maybe it would be with everyone. Hey, almost to what you're saying. Maybe I'm desiring to kiss them because I actually want to be more like them, which I do think is, a part of, you're drawn to people because they have these amazing qualities and you want to be closer to them physically, in any way you can to just be closer to this glow of who that person is, And I just thought it was really rich and really mature.
Yeah. And I think important. And again, talking about tying to the themes and this being this quest, this journey, this discovery of who you are. What have you just described? And by the way, it's a great little Satine inside joke and reference. But it also speaks to what you're talking about earlier of like, I have set forth these rules. I would never date this person. And then they come walking into your life.
Yeah. And then you had to walk into my Jedi protectorship of leadership during a Mandalorian civil war. Of all the Mandalorian civil wars, I had to be drawn into this one.
Yeah, and I thought that was great too. And just again, ask them what you want out of these relationships. An important thing.
Yeah. And I don't want to discredit anybody who is hungry for Star Wars to have more representation, because I do like it that it is open to Obi-Wan Kenobi is expressing some asexual, like, I don't have a huge drive for this. He is expressing lots of different sexualities with seeming like he is, feeling a pull toward intimacy to people of all different genders when he's on the planet,
Yeah.
Gender expression. So I do think that's important and vital as well.
Yeah. And that was part of the discourse that I understand and agree with putting it on Kenobi and just kind of retroactively going back and everything. I guess on the surface, I totally understand that side of the conversation of, but make it a new character, or it's just implied. Let's actually dive into it. Go into Lando, right? The pansexuality of Lando is it's an interview canon bit, not a story canon bit with Kiersten. So yeah, I understand that side too.
Yeah, no, there's a complexity to it, and I think you and I are always trying to speak with respect, and if there's a nuance we miss, we're always happy to hear from people with lived experience.
Indeed.
All right, we are going to move on to any specific other just kind of moments that you enjoyed and wanted to highlight, Ken.
There was just the world itself was fun to imagine in these gobblers and these avalanche creatures and the orbs itself and just the dark cave, man. It was just this fantasy map they wanted to explore. Perhaps it's no coincidence. I've been playing too much Fortnite, which has almost the same vibe, and has floating orbs that you jump on and they give you power. Or even a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. I love exploring worlds, and this, more than any other Star Wars planet in recent memory. There's some great new planets to canon, but like this was I love Andor. I don't want to spend time on Ferrix. That seems like a rough life. This planet too doesn't seem like a bushel of roses and a barrel of laughs, but I just really love the description of the planet. Really love
barrel of nautilins instead of a barrel of lava.
There you go. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to once you really got into it, and just this another wonderful kind of mysterious Force-like or Force-adjacent planet. Is it as big and important as Mortis or Octo or the World Between Worlds? No, but it's in that vein, and that's just kind of fun. I love I love imagining that Star Wars world where, yes, why everyone's on Ferrix carving out a tough life as best they can and learning hard lessons in a hard way. You also have this planet. It exists, and it's fun for me.
Yeah, no, and I like the idea that it was just this almost like this planet that it isn't like a Force Vergence, but it's a planet that almost was just like perfected its own natural balance so much that everything was just in perfect communication and in perfect sync.
Right
to the point where like the entire planet, had this agency and could all be pointed in the same direction at the same time. I thought that was great. It helped that the whole planet absolutely, in my mind, was designed by Frank Oz and Jim Henson Studios in about 1987, right? Like every creature described sounded like they crawled out of the Dark Crystal to me.
I really agree with that. And I've expressed some of the fear I have for Dark Crystal. It scared me as a kid. So I think I had a little bit of fear. I wanted to leave this planet right away. So I don't know if I would have learned the lessons.
Yeah. I think the vibrating asteroids in particular and the sudden shifting, because, we've seen lots of Star Wars characters duck and dodge through asteroids, including Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this idea of like, okay, I can use it. I can use the Force. Wait, they're flying at me on purpose.
Yeah.
By choice. That was a great twist.
Yeah.
So I love that. There's a detail to Obi-Wan's anxiety about becoming a Jedi Knight. And fearing that that Qui-Gon would walk away from him, that he'd fail, that he'd be assigned to being some other non-Jedi Knight role in the temple or just kicked out. It's all very relatable, but this big idea that I really like, it starts on page 16 and then it pops up throughout the book. But it's this idea of longing for his story to already be written. He says, he thinks, but what he wouldn't give to be carved in stone, to have his destiny, his path through the Force already written, something he could study, reference, cross-check, and follow, like his own personal course charted through his own personal stars. Because then he knows what he's supposed to do, and more important, that he could do it, that he wasn't disappointing anyone. I just think that's it's an idea I've been thinking about a lot for some various creative projects. I think it's a true thing that that stories give us comfort. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, in our lives, we're always living stories, but we're almost always in the middle. We get through a chapter and now we know how it ends. And I think it's sometimes even where nostalgia comes from, because I find myself having nostalgia for times where, like, objectively, I was quite miserable that time. But looking back, I know how it ends. And now there's a comfort token at that time. There's some really bad times, real bad things that there's never going to be comfort and nostalgia in. But like, there is such comfort in feeling like your story. And I thought that was a really interesting, really mature idea and a really thoughtful thing for Kenobi to be kind of obsessed with, of just like, I want my life to be a storybook, and I want to know the ups, the downs. I want to know that the all is lost moment at the end of Act 2 going into Act 3. And I want to have the happily ever after moment at the end. So I'm locked in. So I don't have to be in this thing that is true, that I think we all have to be in my opinion, is we have to be in the middle of our story and not know how it's going to end. We live first draft lives, which if you're a writer, that's terrifying. But it's something that I think we all have to wrestle with.
We all want to get to the next page. Absolutely. That can be a burden, or it can be something you look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. So I just like that idea and that perspective on anxiety.
Totally.
Any other moments for you?
Some are in the canon stuff there, but some fun reveals, and once the action really picked up, again, big kind of fantasy scale stuff. So good stuff. And again, like I said earlier, I felt at times it wasn't like it was a slow book, but like you said earlier, just like, okay, yeah, I got it. I know how Obi-Wan's story ends. Let's move to the next page. Once it did and the action picked up, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Other moment I just wanted to highlight is I did really like it is page 391 during the climax of the way that Obi-Wan wins, knowing that he's overpowered by Logrib holding up the giant rocks. He could never move a rock that big, which is fun after the Kenobi show, because eventually he will. But that idea, he gets just like, oh, I don't need a big rock. I'll just throw a little rock at him and he'll drop the big rock. It's just like, Oh, he's unlocking the door to be Obi-Wan. We've talked so much in our lightsaber duel episodes, talking through all of it. Obi-Wan's always about looking around at the environment, looking around at how can I change the parameters? How can I be fighting a different fight that this bigger, stronger, faster, angrier person doesn't see because they're just focused on power. And then Obi-Wan's like, let me just let me change the nature of the game in this small, clever way. I think this is a perfect Obi-Wan moment.
Absolutely. That's a little bit of a breaking of the cycle then. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's dive into canon. I wrote some stuff down, and then if there's more stuff, there's lots of little things that I tried to focus on the big picture. Always check out Star Wars Explained for great rundowns of everything. One of the big things that I had not had spoiled, so it was really a delightful surprise that the entire catalyst of the book of finding this planet, going to this planet, was because of the High Republic characters Orla Jirani and Comac Vitus to a lesser extent, but Orla Jirani, and then going into even that deeper depth that Orla was in the middle of exploring this planet and its history when she gets called off to help Elzar Mann, who has had, if you're not caught up on the High Republic, had he made a little bit of a boo-boo with the dark side. And Orla needed to go to him and help him recenter. How did you feel about that High Republic connection, not just being a reference, but being the catalyst of this story?
No, I loved it. I loved it as it continued to play out, even knowing that you can place it on a little bit of the map, so to speak, that where we pick up with the Fallen Star, right, with Elzar and Orla training. I loved it, and it's one of those things of kind of little Star Wars nerd giddiness of even hearing or seeing that Kenobi read these names and say these names and have some sort of now knowledge of these names. It's just kind of fun on a surface level. But I think when it first popped up, I thought, like, it's just a reference, right? But to actually have it dive in, to actually have her recording her experiences there and more about it, I love it. That's one of the big victories of the High Republic era for me, is they're filling out a lot of just story, but it's so vibrant the way they do it. And the characters are so darn great that I'm excited when you hear the names, and I want to know a little bit more. Like I'd love to get Orla's thoughts on Lunara. I'd love to pick that up in a comic or something else. Maybe there is. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely could have missed it. High Republic is challenging to keep up with everything.
Expansive.
Yeah, but for the stuff I do know, loved Orla Jirani, and it was great to spend some time with her, and great to see, like, there's an idea all throughout Star Wars. It's even talked about in this book of, like, you don't want to be controlled by the past, but you can absolutely learn from the past and be inspired by the past. So to see Obi-Wan, he's desperately looking for help from Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon is helping him in his way, and it's not clicking for Obi-Wan yet. And then Obi-Wan finds it in this character that we know and we like. And I think is a great moment of, the High Republic is doing a great job of kind of showing us Jedi struggling, but the Order in general, talking the talk and walking the walk in doing a better job than they do in the prequel era. And I love that being highlighted by Orla's a Wayseeker, who's just going off and following what she needs to. And there's a system for that within the Jedi that's gone now. And to have Obi-Wan go like, I bet Qui-Gon would really like Wayseekers. I bet he wishes that was still around. And Qui-Gon's like, Wayseekers, cool stuff. It's a great way to connect the eras in a meaningful way.
Yeah, exactly. With great purpose.
Yeah. Final thought for me, I think, is that, we're seeing Orla through, and Elzar for that man, through Obi-Wan's youthful eyes, and he's learning things from them. The idea that Orla stopped doing this because she went off to help people, and that's so centered as Obi-Wan wants to help. But also knowing, like, they had their challenges, they were people too, and seeing them through Obi-Wan's eyes of like, wow, these adult Jedi. It's just a reminder that we all go through challenges.
Yeah, indeed.
So let's talk about what might be the basilisk in the room, Dexter Jetster. Dex meets young Obi-Wan. Young Obi-Wan meets Dex. I think I might have heard about this, but a benefit of waiting so long to read the book, I forgot. And I was thrilled. How did you feel about Dexter's appearance?
Loved it. Number one, loved Dexter. Dexter's one of our favorite characters here at ForceCenter. And I had heard about it. And I remember because we were talking about his appearance in Brotherhood. And I think that even someone on our Discord was like, oh, wait till you get the Padawan or something. Like, not in a spoiler way, just like, we're coming. And I took it as like, I don't know, Obi-Wan gets a sandwich on the way out. You know, like I was like, Dexter's going to show up. But have him involved and have a little bit more of his other life, his past life, maybe, if you will. Who knows when he opened up that diner? We know the diner's been there for a bit, but I really loved it and loved what it said about him and loved the connection. Again, not just a reference, something with great purpose, and it makes a lot of sense. And the stuff he was saying about low grip, you know, I knew something was up when he didn't care about the other two ships and never all that stuff. Valuable lessons found with that, and it was true to the Dexter I love. And there were some moments of knowledge versus wisdom. A lot of what I want from Dex.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I loved, you know, hearing Dex explain some tech to Obi-Wan with the mine with the altimeters. Loved that. It was also just kind of great since this book is largely. Yep, this could be the first Star Wars book you ever read, but it's largely functioning on, we, the audience, know so much more than Obi-Wan does. It's a kind of a breath of relief for a helpful figure to show up, somebody that we know Obi-Wan can ultimately trust, you know?
Yeah.
Is really nice. And I think for me, there's always been something about their relationship, the relationship between Obi-Wan and Dex, that's their relationship. So I really like that Obi-Wan didn't meet Dex on a mission with Qui-Gon. Like the first time Obi-Wan stepped out on his own, he made this personal connection with this weird, gruff, insightful guy. And that connection that he made is something that he continues to pursue, you know, his entire life.
Yeah, I agree with that there. And I'm craving more. This also means we now deserve a Dex on Lenara figure. Like we can get this minor Dex, you know?
Absolutely. And if there is an Obi-Wan season 2, come on, Dex.
Come on, Dexter.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of book continuity. I believe in Master and Apprentice, Obi-Wan's around 17. He's 16 in this book, so it's about a year before. So obviously he reflects that he understands where Qui-Gon is coming from a little bit more, but really a little bit more understands himself. And there's still going to be some bumps with Qui-Gon, and there certainly is in the book Master and Apprentice.
Yeah.
But a big narrative point of Master and Apprentice, a big sticking point in their relationship is, you know, a year or more after this, Qui-Gon still got Obi-Wan doing these forms, these lightsaber forms, and nothing but the forms. How did you feel about that continuing to be this big part of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's relationships, where Qui-Gon's normally like, explore, question, but Obi-Wan, just the forms. That's it for lightsabers.
Look, it works for a reminder of like, even when you're talking about just the journey in the middle of our story, but like you don't level up and don't have to fight the same, you know, bosses on the levels, I guess. Now I'm talking about Qui-Gon, but it's just like the things that you have to deal with in your soul and your mind and your heart and the trading. And I like that it continues. I like that it is so close. There's, I was aware of it. I was like, you know, some of the relationship, because it just definitely seems like at the end of it, it's a little bit more positive, right? And it is, that's a fact. But like, just to know that there's still stuff to figure out now that Obi-Wan has this knowledge of Qui-Gon didn't even pick me. I was assigned, and it doesn't mean you're done kind of solving all that or figuring that out and what it means. So I think it was fun. It's been a while since Master and Apprentice, and I sometimes forget some of the little details. So it's almost like I want to pick it up. I don't have time, but I almost want to pick it up and just read it in order. Just keep going.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely would love to reread Master and Apprentice. I love all the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon stuff so much, but the forms really stuck with me. And just in case anybody hasn't read Master and Apprentice, I won't spoil it, but the forms are a sticking point, and I love their resolution in Master and Apprentice, the why of it. So it's really, really stuck with me. And I think it has great purpose in this book, because it's one of the things to me that balances, like, yep, go out there, get lived experience, but also training, practice, you know, making the basics just utterly instinctual to you. That's important as well.
Yeah, I agree.
we got some Dooku content, kind of. Dooku is heard by Obi-Wan, but they don't physically meet to keep intact what's established multiple places in Star Wars lore that Obi-Wan and Dooku don't physically meet. How did you feel about that? About the Dooku around the corner?
Love it. Hey, this is this great, wonderful era. The Dooku Jedi lost, and now you can throw in Tales of the Jedi, Master and Apprentice. I love this stuff. The Dooku of it all, fascinating. And the little and this had come up right because of Tales of the Jedi 2 and Dooku's he left the team, but we still let him in the clubhouse. We're still friends with the guy. He's a political idealist. We're hanging out with him. So I like setting all that up. And then sometimes I forget, they do take great care. This is, Grievous and Anakin never meeting, and Wedge not being on the Scarif mission, just being back at the base on the PA. I love those little things when they're checking that stuff, and it's a fun little wrinkle. But yeah, more Dooku, man. He's just such a interesting character during this time.
Yeah. And this idea that look, and I love what Qui-Gon says about him. It's he needed to pursue his own thing,
Yeah.
And maybe that'll work out. Maybe we'll agree, but we need it better to keep the lines of communication open.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Very intriguing. And for me, I know there was a big conversation on Tales of the Jedi. I can see watching that one where Dooku has got free range to even the archives. I mean, he does use Sifo-Dyas's code to get in.
Yeah.
That can read like he's still with the Jedi. But for me, it seems like with Padawan, it's crystal clear that he had free access to come and go.
Yeah.
So that was nice in Dooku lore consistency. I did want to ask you about Uncle Logrib. Implies or says that he basically got someone to not pay for him to go there, but in theory he was supposed to deliver this power to somebody else, but he was going to take it for himself. Did you take that as Dooku Sidious, somebody getting word from this guy of is this power, and great, go get it for us? I
don't know if there was any direct implying of this. I 100% went to Sheev. This just seems like Rich, and Dooku's got the money too, but I don't know. There's just something that was Sheevy about it to me, and I just I ran with it in my head.
It just seems like Zilla Beast, force sensitive children, anything where there might be a power. I'm going to get that or destroy that.
Yep. And
use a tool to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then not being revealed, of course, and it almost I was like, is there going to be a Padawan too? Because that's going to be the last chapter. Is the reveal that it's Sheev or someone else? But yeah, it just had that for something that was not necessarily directly answered to be so at times prominent in the third act of the story. That's where I went with it.
Yeah, me as well. Just a couple other things. We also had prominent usage of death sticks, which were really, I know they are. I know you can smoke them, but they're really portrayed as cigarettes with the death stick rings. How did you feel about more death stick activity?
It's totally fine for me. It's not something I need. It's not something I would miss, but also when it's there, and again, the way it was used is pretty darn funny. You're just thinking of poor Elon Sluice Bogano buying into the live death sticks.
Yep. Setting Obi-Wan and Elon in there. On their faithful encounter. Fateful encounter. Final thing for me is we have the character who is who gets the T5 shuttle, not a T6, but a T5 Jedi shuttle for Obi-Wan. In his Meba Phonox, mentioned to be an Ortolan with only legs. Just ripping the Band-Aid off the wound of Max Rebo's limbs. How did you feel about that?
Look, this is big. This is big. This is earth-shattering Star Wars canon. I'm starting to think that to me, there's different kind of Ortolans. That's the way I can go with it. I have become a shoulders guy, where I think it's Max. Max has legs and arms. That's where I go. So this fights me. But I like it.
Yeah, I'm totally open to the true number of limbs that different Ortolan might have. If Meba only has legs, great. The hill I will die on is what Max Rebo on screen, not that maquette of his early design.
Right.
But what we see on screen, those are arms because those are shoulders, not hips.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I'll try not to be trapped in a cycle of fighting about Max Rebo, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
Any other canon things that you wanted to acknowledge or touch on?
No, little tiny things here and there. There's a lot of Legends connections. As always, we say we recommend our friend Alex Damon and Molly Damon, Star Wars Explained. They have some great Easter egg stuff, cameos, and all the kind of things, and ships and designs. You mentioned the T5 versus T6. But yeah, some of it's there. I'm not super versed in the Legend stuff, but there was a lot of references, particularly that Siri character, which is a romantic interest for Kenobi. So I love when that kind of stuff gets pulled in and used in smaller ways.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because there's the mention that when he's thinking about romance, I'm pretty sure Siri would have been down.
Yep.
Nice. At the end of the day, Ken, why do you think this book is called Padawan?
Oh, look, we are all learning here. We're all on that, but I also think it's Kenobi's identity. Then it's a burden at first, it's a realization later, a reminder of the constant state of learning. That title Padawan is sometimes, even when Low Grib shows up, it's Padawan. I see that braid. It could be, even Anakin struggles with it, right? And sometimes it is thrown at his face. Oh, Anakin's just a Padawan learner. Wait, hold on here. So I like that. It's something that you can struggle with. And you're talking about the next page, going on with the journey. You want to know this is reminding, especially if you're in this age, you are here. This is where you're at, and the journey's hopefully, if you're fortunate, all out in front of you. And now it's your time to learn. So there you go, Obi-Wan. You got to learn. The title's not a burden.
The title's not a burden. Yeah, I love that because when it was announced, like both of these books, these recent Obi-Wan books, Brotherhood was so intriguing because to me it really is about him stepping into that role of, well, we're equals now, we're brothers, and maybe I'm more comfortable with that. And that's such an important change in their relationship, and I think ties to the Obi-Wan Anakin story so powerfully. So then the title of Padawan, I was like really curious, is this just that's where he's at in his station, or is there kind of some more to that? Love the High Republic books, but that is one of my criticisms of, like, some of the books, the title is kind of spot on, and some of them feel a little, it could be more specific, to the book, in my opinion. So I was really curious about Padawan, and I love that the title ended up really being meaningful, almost a partner with Brotherhood, because this is a book about him stepping into that mantle of realizing what he had and the community he had when he was, in his clan of younglings, and now he's in this totally different role, this totally different relationship, and having epiphanies about what that means for him. And then I think it really, the last lines in the book, I think, really ties to everything that he goes through. And that one of the things that he goes through is, I'm not going to obsess on my journey being carved in stone and having to know the end. I'm not going to be obsessed about, just when will I become a Jedi Knight? I am going to be clear and present in this moment where I'm a Padawan. And I like that that's the beat that it ends on, of like, okay, I went through this journey and now I realize I have more to learn. Now I have a better perspective and I want to learn. I want to be what I am right now, which is a Padawan.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yep. And he'll have many, many more challenges to come. So that leads me to my second to last question, Ken. What other Obi-Wan stories are you wanting?
Look, enough already. We need Kenobi and Satine, the young romance. It has to happen at some point. A lot of authors have wanted to take swipes at it. We've Tales of the Jedi could be a very interesting spot to put that in, especially if you can get Anna Graves and James Arnold Taylor back for those voices. People would love that. It's just stop. Everyone wants the Old Republic to come back. I get that. I want this story. I need the details. All the gossipy, juicy details, and also the big lessons that could be within the story. I want that. And also, I'm interested in more canon stories of Kenobi and young Anakin. There was the comic series a long time ago now. It was interesting. It was a little different with like the open and the close and all that stuff. At the time, wasn't my favorite. I'm going to revisit it at one point. But just Kenobi, talk about the next struggle. And there's someone like Qui-Gon before him didn't pick Anakin, was kind of, in a way, assigned Anakin, carries on that burden, how big that is to his life. To actually see, I think I'm talking about the next morning when you're flying back to Coruscant after Naboo, after the funeral. Like, what's that conversation like, and how does Kenobi start that journey with Anakin?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think I would love more Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan adventures, and I love that time frame they've carved out. Master and Apprentice, he's 17, and I believe he's 25 in The Phantom Menace, so that's a lot of room for Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. You got a whole animated series right there if you wanted. So I'd always be happy for more Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. But other than that, I'm really with you. There's some individual stories. I would love Obi-Wan's forging of his final blade, at the beginning of the Clone Wars. I guess we got in Brotherhood a little bit more of the story I've always been wanting of his ascension to the Council. Yes. But yeah, Obi-Wan and younger Anakin, including right up to, here's your room. No, it's a little different than Tatooine. That would be absolutely great, of Obi-Wan taking his first steps as a Jedi Knight and then already having this responsibility to Anakin. Love it. Yeah. And my number one is the show I'm calling Obi-Wan: Duchess on the Run. I'd be happy to experience that in any way. There's so many great Star Wars authors. A book series would be great. I have to admit, because falling in love with that story in animation, man, would I love a 2-hour animated movie or a limited event. It's not going to be a series. It's the Clone Wars animation. We got the machinery running. It's Tales of the Jedi, but it's not, 6 separate stories. It's a 1-hour movie or a 6, episode series. That story has so much potential, and those characters are so beloved, and Qui-Gon is there, and the Mandalorian history is there. Yeah. I so want that story to be given, absolute focus on stage, spotlights on, give this story room to breathe, and let it be as important as I think it could be to Star Wars, the overall Star Wars story.
Yeah, to not just I know what you mean. Yeah, well, I would say it's not just like there's a lot of fans of the story wanting it, but beyond that, just how it matters to a lot of things going forward with both characters.
Yeah, it fits into a lot. Ken, here's my final question. I try to ask fun questions at the end. I've tooled this one specifically for you. Other people can relate, but I've made it very specific to you. If you discovered a steak that gave you great power, but it made Sizzlers attack you every time you ate it at Sizzlers, would you still eat that steak at Sizzlers?
A trick question. The food at Sizzler did attack me constantly. It'd be hard, right? It'd be hard to give that up. I'm someone who's, I always say I describe myself as mostly vegan now. At home, I try to remain so. But then you get out on the road, or you go, meet Mark Ellis at Wood Ranch, and that pulled pork is right there. Like, and then it's a power. It's a power that kills me slowly. So I'll have to break the cycle. It's all about breaking the cycle. So my answer to you is, if I discovered that and I could jump farther with the steak, I'd probably go for a little bit until I had to turn around.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I wrestle with the frozen pizza addiction, particularly. I love Tombstone. Those first bites are always so good, so powerful. And then, as I continue and eat the entire pizza, I can taste the not real. I can taste the pain. I know what I'm doing. That's part of what I enjoy, but I'm punishing myself. Yeah. But it's just such a great idea. The planet being, don't take that and attacking. I love the idea of them reaching into the freezer at Target to pull out a Tombstone, and the door just closes on my arm with teeth. It's terrifying, but fun. Star Wars. Well, that is it. I don't have any more final thoughts, but do you have any final thoughts on Padawan?
Hey, we finally got here, and our ForceCenter friends in Discord can stop posting those Frodo and Sam getting a Mordor memes of us finally reading this book. A lot of life got in the way. We're happy to spend more time with these characters. So Kiersten White, great job in this book. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, you can find us on Twitter at ForceCenterPod. We are on Hive at ForceCenter. Look for us there. Instagram and YouTube, as we mentioned before. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're available on a lot of spots, including iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. And you can support us at patreon.com/ForceCenter and get into that Discord and post some memes about us reading these books. You can find me at Ken Napzok, or go to my website, kennapzok.com for more. Where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media. Instagram one is in one I particularly want to highlight. It seems as Twitter continues to go through its crisis that it may or may not survive, that a lot of people are looking to Instagram. I would love to find more friends over on Instagram. My handle there is @JosephScrimshaw. I'm also on TikTok. I'm also on Mastodon. And if Hive ever comes back, I am also on Hive. You can also find my YouTube channel, Joseph Scrimshaw, as well. Just search YouTube for that. More stuff coming in the new year. And I'm continuing to post my not unboxing videos over there as YouTube shorts. So check that out. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Obi-Wan's Padawan braid that he apparently likes to tug on when he's anxious, this has been ForceCenter.